Hey there, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. Today we have a treat for you. We have a person named Krista Mashore. Now, Krista has an incredible story. She's also a former foster alumni as myself. We've experienced some craziness growing up in the foster care system, but like myself, she was able to find unique ways to take these situations in life and turn them into assets to give her skill sets to apply later in life. And you're going to hear her journey of going through all that, but going from a point where she was, hasn't lived at home since she was 13 years old, into that next stage of going to like group homes, and then eventually going to college, getting her master's, becoming a teacher. Then from there, progressing into a whole new realm of business to where she was making $1.8 million a year, and then progressed on to where she's making $12 million a year. So the money is not something that's a big focal point. However, the journey at which she went through and how she approached each moment, how she did what's called stop, snap, and switch, which you'll hear about in the episode, how it was applied to her life in a way that created the cool life she has now, and how she serves so many people with it. So hop into the episode. I can't wait to see you over there. Hello. Welcome to the show. We got Krista Mashore here. You know who she is, 'cause I just told you who she is. She's awesome. So I'm just going to welcome her in. Hello, Krista. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Anthony. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. You know, you are in my heart.
I thank you for that. I actually am excited to have a chat with you because you're a fireball, man. You just the speed at which your mind operates, your life flows, and then how you pour out. I love it. I love watching it. So we're gonna just dive. Here's the first question I ask everybody, and I'm just gonna let it just flow from here. It just opens up to a cool conversation. Let's say I'm walking around California. I'm in your town. I sit down to this coffee shop. There's a beautiful blonde woman next to me. To you, I don't know you. You don't know me at this point. But for some reason, you turn and feel compelled to start speaking to me. In your opinion, why should I listen to you?
I think because I'm a people lover, I'm a lover of people. I just really care about people. And I know people say like, oh, I want to do good. I want to help people, but I really do want to help people. And I just, I'm a lover of humans, and I'm the kind of person that will pour into you. And those that I care about, everything those I don't even know. That's I think they would probably say, and I have really good energy. So those are for me, like, it's really important to like give good energy to people that's why.
Where'd that come from? Where was that? Like, was that always a thing you had? Did you develop that over the years? Like, where did that love for humanity come from?
I think I was really, as a growing up, I was very insecure, very, very insecure. Nervous type of a child, but I always loved people, and I was always very friendly to people. I've kind of always been like that, very outgoing, but also very nervous. It's kind of a weird combination, I guess I would say. Yeah. But then I was a teacher. I taught third grade for 6 years, so I've always had that love for. I wanted to be a teacher since I was little, and I've been teaching pretty much ever since.
I did that. So I do know we have a kindred connection into the aspect of like childhood. Like, you obviously know I was 3 years old in the foster care system, and I didn't like people for a long time. Like, I was opposite. Like, it was for me, because I think when I was subjected to what I had this experience of like, people are bad, they don't treat you well. So for me, I had this different. Do you mind sharing your experience of like that world, that experience of kind of what you journeyed through? Because I think that definitely has a tie to our humanity.
Yeah, and then I want you to tell me the stats again. I'm just going to write them down. I know there's some certain stats about foster children. So
foster care. So if you go to any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are former foster kids. I believe less than 1% of us go to college, like ever graduate from college. And then also you have, it's even more statistics I found out recently. I can't recall right now, but I know that half the homeless population have spent time in foster care as well. So statistically, we're not set up very well, but there's ties to like suicide rates, depression for foster care that are like 6 or 7 times the national rate. So when we get thrust into that world, we are subjected to some pretty heinous statistics that affect our lives long term.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that, because you're such a good human, and I'm really proud of how you've turned out. So it's
because of that.
I really admire you a lot, Anthony. I know your soul, and I know you. So those are you listening. I just want to talk about Anthony for a minute. I know this is that I know Anthony personally, and not just like, oh, I know Anthony, we're saying it for this podcast. Like, Anthony has come into my home. I've spent time with Anthony, and he is a good human being. And I love gravitating towards good humans. He's just a good person. He cares about people. He's the real deal. And the guy does what he says he's going to do. Like, he has such an amazing work ethic and ethic for his family. I'm very much have a lot of respect for you, Anthony. So I just want to put that out
I appreciate
there.
it. Thank you, then.
You're pretty awesome. So I actually, and I tell the story with permission. So I was at Funnel Hacking Live about 3 years ago, and the whole Funnel Hacking Live is about telling your story and how your story can impact people. And I had been telling the story about my divorce. I was married, and I found out that my husband was having an affair, and it wasn't the first affair. So I ended up leaving him, and we had 2 little girls under the age of like 4.5 at that time. And within just a couple of weeks of him leaving, I had a new girlfriend that picking up my daughters. So at the time, I remember I used to tell the story about my husband, as I said, and it was a pretty traumatic time. Within a few weeks of him leaving, we had drained bank accounts, and the new girlfriend was coming to my home to pick up my daughters for Thanksgiving. And I would tell that story because it was true and it happened, and it was a huge impact in my life, and it helped me relate to people. But the real story that I should have been telling was the story about my childhood. And it was almost like I lived in two separate homes, if that makes sense. I had this very loving dad and even mom at a lot of the times, and we went on vacations, like camping as kids, and very close to my brothers. And then I had my mom, who was abusive. She was physically abusive to me. So I ended up, when I was 13, running away from home. And I did that for about a year until I finally got thrown into juvenile hall because I was stealing clothes and food and from my 8th grade PE locker room. While the girls went out to PE, they came back and poor things. I had stole their clothes and their lunch money. So we had food and clothes to eat.
I took some guy's credit, like his cars, like his X-Men car. I did the same stuff. It's so bad. It's so crazy, though. It's interesting that you did it too.
So funny, yeah. And then they ended up sending me to a group home called Hidden Hills Group Home for Girls in Cottonwood, where I got sent there. And there was nothing hidden about it. We got dropped off in this big, huge bus every day that was labeled Hidden Hills Group Home. So it basically told everybody in high school that we were like losers and problem children. So we got chastised and made fun of. I was kind of like the weird kid. And then I ended up going back home after that year, and it very quickly, within a couple of weeks, we realized that things weren't getting better. So I was shipped to a foster home. So I haven't lived at home since I was 13 years old. Yeah. And luckily, I reunited with my mom, and she was very instrumental in my healing and went to counseling with me and admitted to the family what she had done. So that was really, really great. But the scars from physical abuse are very they're deep, right? So I've had to do a ton of mental work on myself, to have on my mindset and being the best person that I can be to where I'm at. So I always tell everyone, hey, I went to bed until I was 10 and couldn't read until I was in 5th grade. So if I could be a multimillionaire and I could, do it coming from a foster home, you can do anything too. So
I agree. I've been the whole gamut. It's like I used to wet the bed till I was like 14. Like, I think it was this thing where I had this issue with my mom, and like she'd call after visitation, she would miss. Because I had a different experience of foster care, but regardless, I didn't live at home and had these people that weren't taking very good care of me. And I would have the same thing. I think here's one thing. I don't know if I've ever said this. I've never said this out loud. We're about to go there, aren't we? But I went on a trip with a friend of mine to Disneyland. Her name was Stacy. And she's never said anything about this. My guess is the parents had to have known, but I might have been like 14, 15, that same window, I think. And I went and I got back, and she had like this little hide-a-bed under her bed where I was sleeping, like on the bed lower underneath where she was at, and she's still up top. And I woke up and I'd wet the bed at her house at like 14, 15 years old, man. And wet the bed and like didn't say anything, shoved the bed in there. And no words have ever come of that. It's like one of the most embarrassing things I can experience. I'm glad nobody said anything, but for sure, she at one point going like, Anthony probably pissed the bed in her here at one point. But it was, yeah.
How nice of her, though. That's so sweet. Do you know that the abuse causes the blood bedding, and then it's like this thing. You wake up, and I remember smelling the stench of the urine and being so scared that my mom was going to find out that I wet the bed and trying to hide the covers, and then it's this crazy cycle. And talk about embarrassing. I think I was actually older than 10, quite frankly, too.
Yeah.
And it just being so embarrassed about doing it and not being able to control it, and feeling like just making you feel even worse about yourself than. More. It's like, oh God. So thank God don't wet the bed anymore.
Yeah, thankfully, yeah. We could have some crazy nights that could happen, but I don't drink like that anymore. So we go through this flow of, this is going on. Like, at what point do you start kind of, we're calling butting into who you are now? Because there got to be a point at which you go, okay, I'm going to eventually go to college, get your master's degree now. Where did you become the person that go into school, went to college, like all that? Because being the weird kid in class, having those issues in high school doesn't usually lead to going like, I want to go to college. It usually leads to like other stuff.
Yeah. So when I got in my foster home, I ended up meeting some really great girls, and we're all still friends
Yeah.
now. We've been to each other's weddings. We have our babies together. They're like my sisters,
Right.
quite frankly. And they like, it was funny because I came from a good family. Like, I really did. My parents, they were very religious. They didn't believe in going to college back then, and so they didn't push that. But I just wanted to be better. Like, I knew I was a good person at heart. I wasn't really I didn't belong in juvenile hall. I remember first couple week I was there, I saw this girl. She had to be like 12 feet tall, it seemed at the time. Grabbed this other girl's head and started bashing into the porcelain toilet, and
Ooh.
teeth and blood were flying everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die in this place. I don't belong here.
Yeah.
And so I was always like a really sweet kid. I was a sweet girl. I kind of got a little bit jaded, I would say, after my first marriage. When my husband did that, it was so heartbreaking and shocking to have my family broken apart, because I wanted to keep it together so much because of what had happened to me. And so it really tore me up.
Yeah.
And looking back now, it's the best thing that could have ever happened, because I'm married to the most amazing, loving, loyal, sweet man ever. And so, sometimes when you're going through it, you don't realize why. And even I believe that the reason why I went through what I went through was because I'm here to help people. Like, I really believe that me going through the divorce and having that happen, and what happened to me as a child, really helps me be more human to people, and it makes me more relatable to people. And so it helps me help them more. So I really believe that God, the universe, don't let the words get in the way of the message. I believe that he really, it was instrumental in my upbringing, and everything that happened was for a reason.
I agree. Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, well, I don't like that it happened. I appreciate what happened because it did
Yes.
make me who I am. And I think there is something that goes into I want to say the compassion for humanity. Like, for me, I see people differently because I've gone through stuff. I know what it can be like to not have that, but also I like to help people because I like the thank yous. Like, selfishly, I enjoy when somebody goes, "Thank you so much for doing this for me." Because growing up, I
Yeah.
didn't have the human appreciation, and so relationships matter deeply because I didn't have those for a long time, and so I understood that to get the full thank you and appreciation, I had to give all of me. So everybody wins with that kind of mentality, I think.
Yeah. And you know what, too? You are very much like that. Like, I have to say, like, out of the thing that we're doing, you are probably one of the most appreciative people in the program. And I just want to thank you for that. Like, it means
Yeah.
so much to us, because we really, like, we're like you. Like, I think I part of the reason when you're come from an abusive family, I think you want so bad to be liked, and you're trying
Yeah.
so hard to get that validation. I know it's part of what drives me, right? And which
Yeah.
sometimes it's actually a bad thing. I think part of one of the things, like, one of my biggest problems is like wanting to be liked too much, right? But and that, I know that stems a lot from the childhood. But I appreciate that about you, so thank you. And you definitely, I believe in life, you don't get what you want, you get who you are, and you definitely are that person.
Thank you. I agree. I think there's something to that part, and I think, yeah, it could be anything in excess is probably bad, right? To do too much to be desired, but I think there's a good sweet spot if you do it properly, where I can seek to be desired by people, but also I think after a while of life and figuring things out, you start to know where, like, when people are taking advantage of you, like when you do too
Yes.
much, people that don't appreciate it, then you're like, nah, I'm not going to keep giving because I'm not 12 anymore. Like, I
Yes,
know how to
exactly.
let
I'm the
people.
same. I'm the same way too. Yeah, it's funny,
I
when I
love
first started my coaching, I had a much harder time. It was like somebody would complain or somebody was mad, and I'd be like, ah. And now I'm like, hey, it's on them, because I just know how great it is. So
yeah,
I've gotten much better with age, and I'm
yeah.
51.
It takes time. It does take time to get there, and wisdom and experience. And I think there is something to like having a superpower. I have this painting in my wall here, and I also have a tattoo now that says, "A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor." And so there's something to the things like
Oh
these are your
yes,
awe
that's so
shift
true.
moments.
I like that.
Right? Like there's all these awe shift
That's a
moments you're
great
talking
saying. A
about.
smooth sea.
Never made a skilled sailor.
Sorry, go ahead.
Smooth sea
Yeah,
never
I
made a
love it.
skilled sailor.
That is
Yeah.
so true.
I didn't make it up. It's a good one though. I like it a lot. And so it's kind of this thing where I've always lived through like the idea of, man, all these things that crazy happen, but they happen so I could be me now and I wouldn't change anything. So for you go through this whole process. At what point do you progress into college? Like, if that wasn't the idea for that family, that group, where did you step out and say, I'm going to school?
So I made the decision when I was in 12th grade, I was like, I'm going to go to college. And, I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I went to school. I flunked out my first year there. Like literally flunked out. I had like a 1.6 GPA. So I came back to Antioch, where you and I both lived, which is so funny. We've lived in the same city, right? And then I ended up working at getting a full-time job at Costco, working during the day, 40 hours a week, and then going to college at the University of Hayward Extension at night. And then I decided I wanted to be a teacher. So I became a teacher, taught third grade for 6 years. And then when my husband had the affair, I went into real estate so I could take care of my kids. Was a top 1% realtor for 17 years in a row, for 17 years. And then I, 5 years ago, stepped out of real estate to teach real estate agents and lenders. And now we also teach entrepreneurs. So like yourself. Yeah. So it's been a ride, fun one.
It's really crazy, right? It's a fun ride. It's I think it's all life is supposed to be that way, like out of the bounds, oddball stuff that most people look at. Because I think the normal people go like, "Oh, you're abnormal." Yeah, but the statistic norm says that people are unhappy in their lives. Like that's a statistical norm. I go, okay, well, I don't want to be that kind of normal. I want to be the guy that's abnormal, and that means I'm on a side that's more happy, more free, more control. For you, you did have a jump from stage to stage. There are people that listen to this podcast that aren't entrepreneurs, that may not be in real estate, but there's a good little pocket I know of your story where you actually had this situation where you're doing the job you're doing, you're enjoying your life to an extent as a teacher, and then you have some woman walk in, and this woman walks in as a parent who's a real estate agent that kind of changes your life. Do you mind expressing or kind of sharing that window? Because I think that's a good pocket for people to see what it looks like to go from a job you kind of like, maybe not in love with, to a thing you'd love to do like you do now.
Yeah. So I was one of the moms came into my classroom. I was teaching, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I just made like $13,000 selling a house." And I was like, "You made $13,000? That takes me, from one house, it takes me like 3 months to do, right?" And so I literally picked up the phone in the classroom, called like Allied School of Real Estate, took my real estate test, and then my daughter got sick. And so I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and take care of her, right? Because she got spinal meningitis and had kidney failure and all these things. And they told me that she probably wasn't going to make it because she had multiple strokes, and she's fine, but she needed more support. And that was when I found out my husband was having the affair. So I had to dive into real estate. And I did great. I sold 69 houses my first year. And the reason why, people always ask me, how'd you do that? And it's like, because I had an absolute why. Like my why was to keep the girl, because of my upbringing, because of the abuse and leaving home. I wanted my girls to have a very safe, happy, loving, fun, warm upbringing. And so I committed to, we had just bought in a brand new house. So it was like really bad timing for him to do everything he did. But it was Thanksgiving. My daughters are getting taken away with the new girlfriend picking them up, right? I felt like just this big. A bottle of wine in, by 10 a.m., just crying and feeling sorry for myself. I'm looking in the backyard and it's just dirt, because in California, when you buy a new home, they don't at this development, they didn't do it for you. So I said, Krista, you got to take care of yourself, and you got to figure this out so you can take care of your girls. So I made a decision that I was going to fill that backyard with a pool and beautiful memories. And that's exactly what I did. Within a year, I built a gorgeous, couple $100,000 pool and backyard, and the girls had just memory after memory there. So,
yeah. What do you think's the unique piece of this? Because there's something where you're glazing over it, not intentionally. And I do this too, accidentally. But there's a pocket of something that took place between you and 69 homes that 95% of people just won't do. And you can say I had the why, but there's a lot of people have a why, but the why doesn't drive them. They don't get up and do that. They don't reach the goal just because the why is there. What do you think, if you were to dig in and unpack it? What is the thing that with that why you did to accomplish what you did?
One of the things I don't think you can really teach people is how to be driven, right? I think that's really hard to teach drive. Yeah. I think I'm a fighter. I've been a fighter forever, right? Running away, not being one of the 95% of people, whoever you said, that don't, the 1% that goes to college. I've just always been a fighter. I've had a strong desire to do well. I am an achiever. I'm somebody who's not afraid, I guess you could say. I don't have a lot of fear. I'm normal. I have fear, but I really fight past it. And like, when I resist the most, I must persist. And I fight past the fear. And I'm very optimistic. Like, successful people look for like the reasons why something will work. Successful people look for the value in things they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Poor people, unsuccessful people look at the cost of things. They look at what if it doesn't work? I always think the opposite. Like when I see people so one of my mentors makes $1 million a month residually now, a month. Yeah. And I was like, if he could do it, I could do it. So instead of saying like, oh my, and then I don't ask how a lot of the times, because if you ask how, your brain will talk you right out of doing it.
True.
I always talk, and I really believe this more than ever now, that I learned it over the past year when I did the Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi launch. And I came number 2 in that launch. And quite frankly, it was almost impossible that I did, because I competed with people like Ed Milet, Brendan Burchard, Russell Brunson, all these people that have hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers, quite frankly. They're big, huge, influential people. I don't have a big list like that. Mm-hmm. And so to ask how, I would never have done it because it seemed almost impossible. So instead of asking how, I asked who. I hired the right person. I hired someone who had won 3 times. And I just started taking action and taking massive, effective action, because it was through someone who had done the thing. And I listened to what he said, and I just pushed, and we got number 2, and I that is how I believe that anybody can do anything. Because it almost like, I remember Dean saying, we are rooting for you because you're like the super underdog of the group, right? And it was like, I shouldn't have won, but we did, because I didn't ask how, I just took action. You got to take action. I mean, anybody can do anything. If someone else did the thing, you can do it.
Yeah, I think there's a little it's hard because people go, oh, it can't be that easy. Like, no, it's not easy. It's just simple. It's that simple, but it's just not easy. And that's the thing where people have to separate the two. Is you can lay out and say you just got to take action. People go, I don't know what action do I take. You got to take the one that your butt puckers at the thought of it. You get scared, like, oh, I don't want to do it. Because you alluded to something that I think is what I tell people. I don't have this massive fear of trying new things. We're doing something together right now that for a lot of people, it's like, that's a lot of work put in. Oh, are you just going to work out? Yeah, it's going to work out because I'm going to work it till it works out. It's a different way of approaching. What I tell people is, I know there are problems. We all have experienced problems. I think this is where the foster care and the hardships actually benefit me. Is there's an inevitable situation down the pathway that I'm going. It's going to be a problem. However, I bring me to that problem. And I've brought me to all my problems, and me has always survived those problems. So if you bring me to the problem, I'm going to figure it out. Like, it's like a fun little challenge to see how much I can go against the world that try to go against me. And if you can bring that mentality to the things you do, I think that's what I'm hearing somewhat in your soul and your perspective is like, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to find out who. I'm going to lean in. And if I take enough action, it's going to work out inevitably.
Oh, so true. But that's what most people like. What I find that why people aren't successful is for a couple of reasons. Number one, they don't make the decision to take action. So they don't make enough decisions, and they don't learn from past decisions, right? Number 2 is they stop too quickly. They come up to a wall and they stop. Whereas, like, I just remember recently when you were talking about your results, right? And you were like, oh, we didn't have as many people that we wanted, that we thought, but we didn't care because we learned so much. And next time it's going to get better. Like, your attitude and the way that you come about things is the reason why, part of the reason why you're successful. There's a lot to do with your attitude, your outlook, how you view things. You didn't view it as a loss at all, right? You viewed it as, oh man, I learned so much. It's going to be better next time. This happened. This many people showed up. We converted this many. Like, it was such a different talk than I think a lot of people would have had, and that's the reason why you're so successful. Is that you view everything that way. Yeah,
you have to. Because that's it. And the way I look at it is everything that we do, we experience. At some point, we have to take an action beyond that. And I go, if I'm going to take an action beyond this one, how do I want to enter emotionally into the action? If I enter the emotion of this didn't do well, it's not going to be that, then I'm already doubting myself, which means I'm not going to give my full energy to the next stage. But if I go, all right, this was a golden opportunity to learn something I didn't know prior. Oh, wow, what happens if I try this or this? Or, so it's like my head goes like, I get to puzzle solve. It's always a big puzzle I get to solve, and I actually have fun doing puzzles. So, but I also know that if you solve the puzzle in real life, you make more money, you make more impact. It's even more cool that way. But I think some people, there's a connection to this thing of what if it doesn't work out and how bad it'll look. And then they bounce around and bounce around and bounce around. And I don't like bouncing around. I like to lean in and get damn good at one thing, which is a journey. But there's also a process and a flow to it that means I have to take my own head and tuck away I call the pessimistic co-pilot and say, you stay in the back seat, bro. I got the lead, and I run with this. Now you have some, it's a book. I also have one of these things floating around. I think it's in my drawer over there. But what's something you do in the moment when the wall hits? I love that you have this whole process. You actually got a book about this, but there's something I think you could share with people. It'd be amazing.
This is actually great. In fact, this book, I'm so proud of this book. Out of all the books I've written, I say this, and I shouldn't ever say it again, but this is like a passion project of mine, right? And I've written 5 books, 5 best-selling books, and this is my favorite one. And this should absolutely be a New York Times bestseller. I'm not even kidding you. And I don't say it to brag. It's just that every single thing in this book is called Stop, Snap, and Switch. Train your brain to unleash your limitless life. And basically, we have between 30,000 and 70,000 thoughts a day. And for a lot of reasons, many of those thoughts are negative. And so I literally train my brain to not think about the negative thoughts and like not think, but to notice the negative thoughts, because your thoughts, right, which is your beliefs, your philosophies, the things you think about, that turns into your actions. Your actions are your habits, your rituals, and routines, and that creates your life, your success, your results, or the lack thereof, right? And it all stems from your thoughts. So when you have a negative thought, and I'll tell you what, when I did that whole Dean Graziosi 20 Robins launch, I was stopped, snapping, and switching all day, for a week or two, because I really had to train my brain to turn it around and think you can do this instead of thinking you can't. So you notice whenever you have a negative thought, it might be like mine was, how in that you're never going to be able to beat Russell Brunson. You're never going to be able to beat Ed Milet. They have millions of followers. I had to stop and recognize it's not. Then I snap the bracelet, okay, because I want my brain and my body to get in alignment. Then I put the bracelet on the other hand. I switch that negative thought into a positive one. So that positive thought would be, hey, I haven't done this before. This is my first time doing it. They've done it multiple times. So they've probably maybe outworn their list. I'm new, and I have a new offer, right? So it's you stop and recognize the negative behavior, you snap the bracelet, you switch it to the other hand, and you restate that negative thought into a positive one. So there is study after study, and this book is it's all science based and research based, but it's fun book, right? And it's so funny because over the past year of writing this, it just launched a couple months ago. I mean, my mindset has never been even better because all of the research that I'm doing and how laser focused I've been on it. It's made me even more aware, which has got my life even better. And what happens is you'll start to notice as you start to do this, because you are being more positive, you're looking for the positive things. There's so much research on brain activity and what you think about and the neurons in our brains that it drives you, it brings you towards whatever it is that you're thinking or what you're seeing or you're visualizing. It literally it's built to get you what you are thinking about. So if you're thinking that you can, you're right. If you think that you can't, you're right. Whether you think you can or you think you can, you are absolutely right. So I've just learned to train my brain to work for me and not against me. And you'll notice it starts to, you can see how excited I'm getting, but it starts to affect people in your family, those around you, think about someone that that's negative, and you'll see their phone pop up and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to that person, right? It's negativity is not a fun thing, and it really brings you down. So the whole book talks about how you can, there's different activities in here, there's challenges in here, there's ways to teach you to get whatever it is that you want in life. And I mean, it's true. We are built to thrive. We're built to not just survive. We're built to have so much abundance. There's plenty of it for every one of us, but the world there's so much negativity and so much bad news. There's a lot of negative things happening right now. So right now, more than ever, you've got to train your brain to work for you and not against you. And so I've learned to do that. And it's helped me create a happy marriage, a happy persona, a happy family, and several multi-million-dollar businesses. I mean, it really, I love it. I love the book. Go buy it. Stop, snap, and switch. Train your brain to unleash your limitless life.
What I do like about it is there's probably more than, I haven't dove into all of the book. I've definitely read a few pieces of it because I was obviously want to know more about it. And the cool thing is it is rooted in science. And the beautiful part of it is it's simple. That's the thing is it's a simple thing you do in the moments you typically wouldn't do something. And there's a statement I love, and it goes, action ends suffering. Right. So there's going to be some form of action, maybe not the first action or the fifth action, who knows, but there's going to be one action you take that ends the suffering you may be experiencing. But if you never take the action, you never get there. But if your mind puts you in this position to get stagnant and stay there, then you don't take the action. So I love that it puts people into action to restate it and then go do something that's in a positive place. And it's actually in and of itself an action you're taking. You're doing something that's a tangible physical thing. I can look back and go, I think you said at one point you broke like 5 of these bracelets in one window of time because you're just doing it all day. Like, I love that. It's the actions of it.
Well, and then you start using it for the opposite. It's like you start noticing, because remember, thoughts become things. Like literally, your thoughts turn into things. So then I start to do the opposite. Like, oh, Krista, great job. Like, that was awesome. You did that well. I'm stop, snapping, and switching for when I do something right. Stop, snap, and breathe. Stop, snap, and stretch. There's all these different things that I do it with, to where I'm just doing everything I can on a constant basis to like work for me, not against me. Because the more that you focus on, whatever you focus on grows, whether it's good or bad. So the more that I can focus on my successes, I always say success breeds success. What gets celebrated gets replicated. The more I can focus on the things I'm doing well and right, the more my brain is going to say, let's do more of that. Whereas most people do the opposite. They're like, oh my God, I didn't get enough done today. I'm so tired. I don't have any energy. Oh, I'm exhausted. It's too hard. The economy, I don't have any money. And I always say, hey, hard now, no money now, or hard forever, right? Successful people are willing to do the things right now that normal people are not willing to do, in order that they don't have to do hard things forever. And that's the case about money too. Like, you and I both know this, because you are selling your speaking program, and people will say, well, I don't have the money. When I have the money, I'll do it. Well, guess what? You and I didn't have the money. We were foster kids that were kicked out on the streets, and nothing was handed to us. So we had to figure it out. We had to get loans. And it's like, it's either it's going to be hard now, and you're not going to have any money now, or you're going to have to invest in the skill, invest in learning the new trade, invest in taking care of yourself right now, so you don't have to forever. It's one or the other. You're either going to pay for it now, or you're going to pay forever and ever and ever and ever. And that's the same with your time, your money, your health, your finances, your relationship, whatever it is.
Yeah. I've never found that the biggest leaps in my career, my life, ever came from easy, calm decisions. Ever. Like my marriage, what it is now, it was a very difficult one to remarry my ex-wife after 3 years of divorce and crazy. To close my gym when I did, to go into speaking world, it was not, people didn't make, no one understood it. Like my people, you're already sound in this. Like you had a physical brick and mortar, you're doing good things. You get this $250,000 consulting contract. Why would you stop this? And I go, I have a pull for something else, right? But it doesn't make sense for most. And so there's gonna be those moments, even what we're doing now. Like I had to take on a whole overhaul of the entire thing I do as a marketing, we'll call it machine, for a whole business. And I'm like, I'm gonna dive in. I've spent the last 2.5 months building this thing like a madman, pretty much by myself, But the idea is like, you're never gonna have the time, never have the money. You make the time, you make the money. And it is a mental way you have to think through things. But most people, they want it to be comfortable before I move. And that's what everybody does. So that's why everybody has the exact same thing. But that 1 to 3% of people, they do it when they don't feel like it. They do it when everybody else is scared of it. They become the outliers, which experience an outlier type life.
Yeah, oh, it's true. I remember. And funny thing is a lot of times people that love you the most will keep you from your dreams, because they don't have your vision, or they don't see it, or they don't believe enough in themselves. And and they're trying to help you, they actually are hurting you. And I'll give you a good example. My dad is probably he loves me probably more than anybody in the world, him and my mom. I'm probably his favorite kid. And he is one of my best friends. He is the sweetest, kindest, most loving, gentle man in the world. And when I went to go and when I told my family, hey, I'm leaving real estate to become a coach, they all about lost their mind. They're like, Krista, normal people at age 47 who have a very lucrative career, I think I was doing around $1.8 million a year in gross commission, they don't leave their career. Nobody's ever going to pay you to coach them. Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, I'm so glad I didn't listen to them, because now we do $1 million months, right? It took me 14 years to make $1 million. It's just not about the money. It's about the impact I'm making. And me, part of my manifesto says that I'm going to, I help people build community market leaders across the world who make an impact and a difference. And I can't do that as a solo person. I can't do that even as a coach myself, but I can do that now because I'm helping coaches help people. I'm helping people like you help people. And had I listened to them, number one, I didn't realize how unhappy I was in the fact that I was working so much more than I ever knew. Like I was a nonstop working agent, because I was selling 150 plus 160 homes a year on average, 135 on average a year. And it was so much, right? And I didn't realize that even though I wasn't working weekends, like being in front of people, I was on my phone constantly. And you're talking constant. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize how unhappy I was and how tired I was and how burnt out I was. So had I listened to these people that thought they were trying to help me by telling me that, hey, I'm crazy to leave, I would probably be like dead right now or
More
burnt out,
miserable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And the good thing I think people don't understand, this is my honest perspective of revenue and money and all that kind of stuff is that when you get to a certain point, you're making a certain level of money, you understand that how hard it is to get there, right? To do the energy that has to go to create that. But also there's an exchange of value if you're going to have it long term, which means whenever I make $1 million, it's because I serve someone the level that they go, thank you so much. Here is money for the value you provided to my life. Because everybody
Yeah.
in our world loves to buy things. Nobody wants to be sold. But if you have people that like tout your greatness and they love it, they're thankful that they were able to pay you money to help them do what they do better. Whether it's for them to make more money, to fix their marriage, to, I don't know, fix their car. But the idea is like when you start looking at certain levels, like I used to look at people who had money and go, all these evil people, they had to do something bad to get money. And it was a conversation in my head growing up poor for a long time. And it wasn't until I got around people with money, realized like, man, these are some of the most serving, loving humans because they understand that that's how the world really works. I give a value, I create amazing value. And if I do that, the world reciprocates with the income that I'm trying to make. Now, not everybody. Obviously, there's some smucks and some horrible people out there. But majority of people, oh, they did some great things to create something awesome to put into the world, like you're talking about, serving humans to make it happen. And not everybody thinks of it that way. So that's why, yeah, the crab's going to pull you back down to the bottom of the bucket, right? And you have to climb out and do your thing on your own. It's an interesting journey in that way. I've experienced the same thing. I've had friends. My wife and best friend at one point were like, dude, chalk this up. Like, you're not doing very well. This is like, just do something else. Like, this is just odd. And I go, no. And then my best friend recently wrote back. It was like 10 years later, didn't write back, but he wrote a message. He's like, dude, I remember like years ago, I told you, like, don't do this speaking thing. He's like, to see what you're doing now, you bought your wife a Mustang for Christmas. He's like, this is crazy. He's like, but he's like, I see it now. He's like, I see what you saw 10 years ago. I'm honored to know. Like, it was a cool feeling of like him appreciating the fact and owning the fact that he was the guy that before was like, don't do this. So it happens,
Yeah.
people.
Usually it's people that love you most that hold you down the most, but it's because they don't have your vision and your passion, and quite frankly, Tony Robbins always says, go to the person that's done the thing, right? If you want to accomplish something, like even for you, when you were doing your football, you had coaches, right? I would never ask my dad, hey dad, should I invest $150,000 for this coach? Because he would tell me that I was crazy. In fact, he did tell me, he said, Krista, why? Because he reads all my books. He's the one that reads them all. He does the editing. He says, Krista, why do you keep hiring all these coaches? You're already in the top 1% of coaches and of agents. I'm like, well, Dad, that's why I'm in the top 1%. I'm in the top 1% because I hire the coaches. And so, and he loves me more than anyone. He only wants to give me good advice, but I wouldn't go to my dad. Like, for example, right now we've had, $26 million months in a row. My dad has never made that in like probably 10 years. So I wouldn't go to my dad to ask him if it's a smart idea, not because I don't love and respect and admire him, but because he hasn't done the thing. So I can't get the advice from him who hasn't done the thing that I'm trying to do. And I think many people make that mistake, right? I want to be around people that are doing bigger and better things than me, that are achieving more, that are having more of an impact, that are adding more value, that are making even more money. And I think money's a great thing. Like, I love money because every single thing in this world started from somebody selling something to somebody. And I love selling to people because I know that they need my help or they're never going to get where they're going to go. So for me, but I'm like you, I had to train my brain to change the way, because I was always kind of in a scarcity or lack mode with money because of being in the foster home and not having any money and having to always work so hard for it. And then my husband left and drained, our accounts were drained and we had no money. And so I've had to really work on my relationship with money, and it's definitely possible.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
But when you figure it out, you understand the relationship of it. It frees you up so much. Like I saw recently in your little thing, you have like, you get an RV, you get to go out there and cruise the world. But like, it creates freedom and like stuff you could do in your life. That RV looks amazing, by the way.
It is really cool. It's pretty cool.
It's just the mansion on wheels. It's like, look at this, got the RV. Okay, get after it.
It's actually called that, the Mansion on Wheels. That's what it's called.
I love it. I absolutely love it. That's so cool. I've had a blast talking to you. I'm seriously, the time flies by. I'm honest. I look up and I go, oh, we're already at time.
It's been so fun. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, it's a blast. I love to get to hear a little more like the backside of the stories of your life and your mind takes and works. And that's what this whole thing's about, is how do we get people to uncover the parts of your brain, right? The nuanced pieces that they can plug in to shift their identity, able to have some success. It's all about how successful people make shift happen. That's the
Yes, I
tagline.
love the name too. So good.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Two questions as we kind of conclude this time. First question is, where can I send people to follow you, pay attention more? Like, what's the place I want to direct human beings who want more of Krista?
Well, obviously, if you go to any of the social channels, it's at Krista Mashore. And if people are interested, if you're somebody who's at a point in your life where you're like, yeah, I'm ready for a change,
Mhm.
and you want to make more impact, and you can go to KristaMashore.com/trucks. That's KristaMashore.com/trucks, and you can learn about a 3-day virtual event that I have that I do every month, where it teaches you how to just create the best life possible.
I love it. Go there, KristaMashore.com/trucks. I didn't know I had my own link until just now, by the way,
You
people. I'm
got your
hearing
own link, Anthony.
as soon as you guys are said. It's awesome. And the second question, here's the question. Oh, you can answer however you want. What promise did God make to the world when he created you?
I would think that you could trust me, that I'll do right by you. I think that is a promise he made because it's something that I people before things and they'll always come. Like that's
Mm.
been one of my mottos forever. You put people before things, the things always come, and we always put people first, and so things come in all
That's
aspects of
good.
life. You can
I
you can
like that.
trust me.
I like that. I like that. And I personally, you guys, I can actually attest to the same thing. You can trust her. She does. She says things, and then she does what she said she was going to do. Like it follows through. And that's it's unfortunate. It's not a common trait in all people. And so when you find people that do that, cherish them. So I cherish our time together. I cherish our friendship, our working relationship. I appreciate our time here. Thank you so very much again for hanging out with me. Yeah, everybody else who tuned in still, thank you for hanging out with us. I hope you got something that was a useful tool here. If you glean some piece of information, apply that. Go do something and actually make it. Do now. Stop, snap, and switch. Go get the book. Go do that in your life, right? Also, there may be someone you know that needs to hear this episode. Share it with them. Copy, paste, send. Get this out into the world so more people can hear this amazing message. And as always, make the most of your awe shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Krista Mashore signing off.
Thank you, love it.
Hey, thank you for tuning into the Awe Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.